Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Plant Planet, the efficient future, looking at more efficient ways of working, reorganizing your business and processes so that you're faster, safer, and more cost effective. The conversation is brought to you today by Plant Planet, the online news platform and independent magazine focused on the latest news, releases, and insights from the construction plant industry. It is written by the industry for the industry. I'm Declan Curry. I'm a journalist and broadcaster. I'm delighted to be your moderator for our discussion today. And I look forward to receiving your questions for our speakers. We encourage you to ask what's on your mind. I'll tell you how to do that shortly. Well, this is the second in our series of online conferences. We have a great lineup of speakers for you today. So let me show you the agenda and tell you what we've got coming up. We'll hear first from Aidan McGeary of Green Power Systems on electrification, then Ian Barnes of SITECH on digitalization. That's followed by Joshua Marshall of Topcon, then John Day of Yanmar on how we can cut emissions that cause climate change, and then wrapping our conversation up, an overview of the biggest issues you face from the Chief Executive of the Construction Plant Hire Association, that is Kevin Minton. We'll wrap up the discussions just after 12 o'clock. For all of our speakers, we've included a QR code to their LinkedIn profiles. That will appear on the screen while they're speaking. Feel free to scan that quickly and add them to your connections. We're grateful to our sponsors for their support and their insight. Without their assistance today would not have been possible. You'll see their names displayed on the screen. Now, after each of our speakers, there's a brief amount of time for your questions. You can ask your questions anytime you like using the Q&A function on your Zoom screen. Don't wait till the last minute because the time will whiz by. Ask your questions while they are still speaking. It is the best way for you to get the most out of today. It's how you get the information that's most relevant to you. There's also on your screen a chat function. We encourage you to use that for networking, to share your LinkedIn profiles, to pop in and say hello to all the other participants. So it's Q&A for your questions and the chat box for your networking. And just a reminder that the name that you use to log in will be visible in both. This is a live event. We know from our experience during lockdown and beyond that these can sometimes be hit by technical glitches. If anything does go wrong, sit tight, we'll work it out behind the scenes. And we encourage you to share the best thoughts and insights on social media. The hashtag is Efficient Future 2021. Those are numbers, Efficient Future 2021. To follow us on social media, you'll find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Plant Planet UK. On LinkedIn, you'll find us as Plant Planet. So our first speaker today is Aidan McGeary, who's the Managing Director of Green Power Systems, and he's going to talk to us on the subject of energy transition. Aidan has a vast knowledge of the possibilities of electrification, which he's gained through his work with clients throughout the UK and Ireland. Welcome, please, Aidan McGeary.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. My name is Aidan McGeary, and today I'd like to introduce you to Green Power Systems and talk about the benefits a transition to electric equipment can bring to business operating in the construction, plant, and recycling sectors, to not only achieve the net zero targets that have been set by government around carbon emissions, but also to help realise the greater efficiencies that are available from running this technology day to day. Electric drives are today's forward-thinking trend for many businesses, not only in cars, but also in plant machinery. Due to the benefits around noise and dust pollution, many applications in urban, indoor, agricultural, and high-dust environments benefit from this type of equipment. Not to mention the powerful zero-emissions electric drives are extremely easy to maintain, and with lower operating and servicing costs, less vibration, smoother operation, and with much reduced heat buildup than the diesel engine alternatives, it's clear why this technology is growing in popularity across the sector. Another additional benefit is that the full torque is immediately 100% available when operating, which gives more output than traditional diesel-powered machines. Taking into account the reduced cost of fuel and maintenance, despite the initial higher investment cost of purchasing electric-powered equipment, estimates suggest the overall total cost of ownership is expected to be up to 20% lower than that of an equivalent diesel-powered machine in the very near future. While we believe that most people recognise the benefits and can get past the initial capital cost, we understand that for sites to realise the full potential associated with electric equipment, they need more than to simply purchase the machinery. What is lacking in many places is the infrastructure required to power and charge the machinery at the required times for an acceptable cost. This is what Green Power Systems are focused on to help the industry achieve its full potential. By working with the various stakeholders within industry, Green Power Systems are developing flexible power solutions to help develop the infrastructure required. While drawing comparisons with the car industry is not always appropriate, it is worth noting that it wasn't until significant progress around charging infrastructure had been realised that the uptake in purchases and utilisation of electric cars could really start to progress. And while there's still a way to go, there is no doubt that the direction of travel is set and developments of this technology will continue at a pace. The infrastructure required to support the electrification of the construction plant sector will develop over years and will be made up of a blend of sources such as the main electric grid, renewable energy, and the diesel generator will still have a part to play. While the prospect of operating a generator may seem counterintuitive to electrification, it will still be necessary at the early stages of the transition or until all the strategies that involve cleaner energy sources can be made available. By utilising a single generator to power multiple pieces of equipment that previously would each have had their own internal combustion engine is a step in the right direction, especially when we consider all of the benefits discussed previously. There are, of course, strategies that can be implemented around the traditional generator to reduce its carbon emissions, such as running it on alternative HVO-type fuels, or by using battery storage to hybridize them, therefore downsizing to the generator and still getting the same results as far as power outputs, while also achieving reductions around runtime, fuel consumption, noise, and exhaust emissions, making this a very attractive solution for an increasing number of sites. One way we plan to develop strategies is by trialling the X-Electric battery storage technology, designed and manufactured in Austria, on various applications within the UK, where there is an opportunity to test the capability of electric machinery, but where existing infrastructure does not support it. It is only by carrying out physical trials in the field that we feel we can truly overcome the challenges, such as managing the space required for such equipment on sites that are often tight, getting the necessary power cables to site, and overcoming anxiety around the range of equipment and the charge time necessary. By carrying out the trials and gathering the data, we are building up a comprehensive picture that will help us provide users and their suppliers with the information required to develop the correct charging strategies and therefore implement the infrastructure to be able to support it. In this example, X-Electrics teamed up with Volvo in France, where for 1 week, a ProBox unit was used to provide the power for an excavator and dumper on an off-grid island mode basis, as no mains grid power was available. This was done using an 80 kilowatt inverter with 140 kilowatt of batteries, and the onboard transformers and other features of these units allowed us to form our own grid. This solution is mostly suitable for applications where the equipment is being used on an intermittent basis or with low power requirements over short to medium term timescales. But the unit's ability to deliver smart charging function means that we can ensure only the cheapest and greenest energy is used to power the equipment. We equally believe that the industry will not only have to deal with the transition towards electric and other alternative sources of fuel, but how we pay for our energy will also undergo fundamental change, which is yet to play out, but is something we are watching out for. As well as carrying out physical trials, another way we can support businesses is using software specifically developed for selecting the appropriate storage solutions for any given application. In this example, we have a business that runs a fleet of electric battery-powered equipment where they need to charge them at specific times of the day, putting a load on their grid that exceeds their current supply. In order for them to ensure they can support a growing fleet of electric during an increase in the grid supply, our different software applies this system. From understanding the demand required from each individual machine we can either produce our own load curve or take one from the client and analyze the data to be able to feedback what size storage system is required in order to deliver the necessary power outputs to satisfy all charging or powering requirements. From the initial survey and inputting the necessary information, we can produce simple reporting that illustrates the cost saving, payback, and confirm details of the reduction in carbon emissions that can be achieved. For any business, whether an end user with an existing fleet or someone who wishes to grow their fleet of electric plant machinery and would like some help dealing with the challenges we have covered in this presentation, please get in touch via our details at the end of the slide or look us up via Plant Planet. The move to electrification has started us. Let us help you get there. Thank you very much. We are ready for questions if there's any to be answered. Thank you.
Indeed, we are, Aidan. Thank you very much. If you have a question for Aidan, a question about the presentation or about the topic of electrification or the impact of the industry on climate change in general, then go to the Q&A box on your screen and put your question in there. Q&A box for your question. While you're at it, pop into the chat box, say hello to your other delegates and swap your LinkedIn profiles as well. It's nice to say hello to people. Aidan, good morning once again. Let's talk about some of the sort of the practical aspects of this. Many sites, by their very nature, or parts of sites are off grid, so there is an issue here about the portability of the equipment and its reliability. Say a little bit more about that.
Well, in terms of reliability, you know, we started with this from the battery storage point of view, and I think we recognise that battery storage technology is reliable. The reality is that, you know, battery storage on its own isn't going to solve these problems. It's combining battery storage with, you know, other forms of technology, such as renewable sources, such as, you know, the diesel generator. You know, we can't get away from that, certainly at this stage. So it's how we combine, you know, all those various technologies, and you know, we're only really going to understand reliability when we, you know, really put this stuff to the test. And that's where we're at, is, you know, we're trialing this technology, you know, combining it with generators, combining it with renewable energy, and putting it on the sites and trying to understand, you know, the challenges. You know, a lot of sites don't have, you know, a lot of room, you know, they can be tight for space. And there's a real, you know, there's a real step change in behaviors that's going to have to take place in order for this technology to really, you know, take off as well. You know, thinking ahead about, you know, if it's about you know, how we operate the plant, if it's powered electrically, how we charge the plant, if it's running off batteries. You know, so there really is a lot of thought, and really it's not until we start on site doing trials, physically testing it, working with the operators, and you know, working with the suppliers of this equipment as well, because, you know, the OEMs have been fairly quick to come to market to manufacture this equipment. The uptake on sites is probably a little bit slower, and that's about the infrastructure, and that's really where we're trying to, you know, solve the problems.
You talked about the you set out some targets, the impact that this the use of this particular technology might have. James Pierce asked in our question box, how realistic do you think these targets are?
Look, I you know, I think that the targets are there to try and achieve them. You know, how realistic they are, I think it's different for different businesses. But until we start trying, until we start, you know, exploring the options, you know, look, you know, people refer to COVID a lot and how quickly it changed behaviours, and really this, you know, a lot of this is about behaviours, and you know, there seems to be a growing agenda from, you know, larger tier 1 businesses for their supply chain to, you know, achieve, you know, carbon targets. So I think look, we've got to go in the right direction to start with. Where we end up is another question, but you know, we see this as an opportunity for our business to help other businesses within the industry, the smaller to medium ones, because I think that's, the larger scale businesses know what they have to do and they've got the investment to do it. We really want to try and help the smaller businesses in the sector who maybe it isn't their priority today, but it will become a bigger priority as time goes on. We want to try and help solve some of those challenges for when the time comes.
And your argument is that it will certainly make an impact. Another question from someone who hasn't given their name is, how realistic do you think it is that the construction industry might become zero carbon? Sorry, Aidan, I don't know if you got that question from someone who's hasn't given their name. Is that the industry could become zero carbon?
Yeah, again, zero carbon, there's probably more than one way to define that, but we're looking for progress. We're not trying to achieve perfection. We want to get in the right direction, and we want to start making tangible steps in that direction. Where it ends up, it's early days, but there's a pretty strong agenda, which is a commercial agenda there as well that we want to try and satisfy. So I think we get a lot of positive feedback from business. We see what the large OEMs are doing in terms of investing in these fleets. So in order for those fleets to get to market, the infrastructure needs to be there to support it, and that's not just infrastructure for large businesses. It's got to be flexible to suit the smaller and medium-sized businesses also.
Aidan, thank you very much. We will leave it there. Aidan McGeary, thank you so much for your time today. On Twitter, on social media, the hashtag is EfficientFuture2021. And don't forget to use the chat box for your networking and to share your LinkedIn profiles. Well, next we're going to hear about how digitalization is shaping the future of construction from someone with 15 years of experience in the heavy civils and construction industry. That is Aidan Barnes, who is head of business at SITECH. He leads a highly skilled team at the forefront of the digitalization of the construction industry. Today, he shares his thoughts on what a connected site means for heavy civils and construction projects, and how integrating work sites with technology, connected machines, and data insights can benefit the industry. So we say welcome to Aidan Barnes.
Welcome and thanks for joining. I'm Aidan Barnes, Head of Business for SITECH UK and Ireland. SITECH are the UK and Ireland's distributor for Trimble connected construction, site positioning and software solutions, and we support effectively the heavy constructions and civils side of Trimble's product portfolio. We're the leading machine control supplier to the heavy constructions and civil space throughout the UK and Ireland. And with our integrated construction technology solutions, we work with a really wide variety of businesses in terms of their size, their types, including tier 1 contractors, plant hire, equipment hire, ground workers, earthworks, and rental businesses. And because of the brand agnostic nature that we provide as throughout our services and solutions, we're the technical partner of many different organizations of both users and machine types. So firstly, what are SITECH? What do Trimble provide? SITECH really help customers to develop the technology ecosystems to optimize their work sites in conjunction with their own technology investments and heavy plant or survey equipment. By utilizing Trimble's machine control, site positioning equipment and software packages, in addition to our own professional services or training through the SITECH Academy, we're able to offer the expertise and knowledge base to help customers get the most out of the equipment and the most out of their projects. Our range of machine control can cover anything from 2D machine control, 3D or 3D automated. This can be on a range of products, whether it's dozers, excavators, graders, milling machine and paving machines. We have a huge, extensive range of product to suit the application, whether somebody's just getting into machine control or if they're really embedded with that technology themselves and are spreading that technology across their own fleet. In terms of site positioning, We offer a range of total stations, GPS locators, radios, to really make sure that the site can talk to the machine and vice versa. And then in terms of software, so we offer a range of both connectivity platforms such as Works Manager, design suites such as Trimble Business Center that helps you design and work your designs to the machine or your machines to send updates designed from the field, then onto Works OS, which is really that holistic package that ties everything together. So what is a connected site? Well, really, the role of technology in the heavy constructions and civil space is and has drastically changed. Digital transformation, Internet of Things, and data connectivity, data flow is happening right now. So what exactly is a connected site and what does it mean for your construction project? Firstly, there's no defined term. It can mean anything from machine control on site to a full office to field and field to machine, minute to minute update connectivity solution. We can go as deep as we wish, or we can keep it quite top level. And it might surprise some people to learn that machine control has been used since the late 90s. But as any technology has seen over the last 20 years or so, it has evolved quite significantly in some instances. And organizations, in our opinion, both must embrace it or have to start looking at it if they've not done so already, really to be able to be competitive in the market. Further to really how the technology has evolved and the benefit it brings, it's its accessibility. So for many contractors adopting machine control, it's the first step to automation of the work site. But with the growing pressures across the industry, especially since COVID, and as we've become more remote in terms of our working practices and activity, the industry has had pressure on it to adopt and adapt to these new ways of working, really to get the best out of the efficiencies of the projects, but also people. Organizations, in our opinion, now must embrace it in order to be successful. And for those that don't, there are starting to see the cost challenges and considerations that must be made. So for many, it's becoming the standard requirement to meet in terms of our clients and productivity, safety and sustainability. So to that end, it's only adopting one type of digitization, machine control, positioning or software. Whilst it has the potential to meet these challenges, also it has its limitations. So as an example, when we talk about a connected site, the designs can sometimes mean that we have to update machines manually onto each machine. And that possibility of those going wrong when wrong designs are uploaded or design changes are out of date, it can cause a problem. And with no indication of the error until the work's completed. And again, what we're seeing in terms of other scenarios is where an excavator is consistently collecting data, which can be turned into, invaluable as-built insight. It's simply not being collected or used. So when we do collect it, how are we using it? Are we getting the most out of that data and that information? Or, where we see where certain customers aren't working to the latest design, or the surveyors and the project managers making changes, rework's got to be done. So how do we then take those foibles of digitizing and connecting some of the equipment to make sure that the entire site is connected and we're getting the most from all aspects of the connectivity? Because when we see businesses, surveyors, or designers, or other people really embrace the connected site and to move out of their silos, we get past the limitations of the ability to be efficient, to manage the project, or to make the best use of data. So what's the solution? Well, our solution and Trimble's solution, and what we're seeing all our competitors do, is really to make sure we're using construction technology across a connected site to create the integrated work site. It's a concept both as simple but as powerful as it sounds. So at all phases of a project, all essential team members, whether behind a design desk, behind the controls of the machine, they're all seamlessly linked. So for Trimble, we utilize Works Manager, which connects all the different sites across. And whether it's, using GPS 3D or base stations, total stations to send the data from machine to machine, it gives a seamlessly linked system across the work site to ensure the most current complete data is available. Everybody's aware of the progress via two-way data connectivity. That's automatically, wirelessly to everyone at all times. So by connecting the machine control to the workflow management you can take full advantage of the data generated in the field. So the connected site should be viewed as a construction ecosystem, and it really, really hones in on our ability with data, if used efficiently and smartly, how we can get the most out of our investment. Let's be honest, a lot of this equipment isn't cheap, but if we look at the benefits it drives, you know, in terms of cost savings of people, error reduction, wasted material, fuel saving, it really does provide us with the information we need to justify those investments. And it's especially useful if we look at contractors working on multiple work sites or projects. If we need to see everything connected over the site, we can look at job completion dates, when we can move on to the next path, if we need to allocate resources to a different site over and above, or if there's certain things going wrong where we need to put specific specialists into a site in advance to meet the site deadlines. So a connected site solution allows us to connect with everything from all devices, whether you're on site, off site, or your team needs to manage them all at a push of a button. So by using the full value of the data collected, it really helps us all drive better decision making. And the impact of that connected site is felt by everyone working on the project. Contractors can manage the work site more effectively. We're accessing machine quality data, the performance metrics of both the machine and also the project itself, really to look at the progress and make sure we're getting where we need to be for our timelines against the material move, and also in terms of what we're expecting the cost delivery to be. But the benefits are far, far more reaching than this. So let's look at these in a little bit more detail. So productivity gains. As we mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of opportunity to look at how we eliminate rework, make design changes quickly, reduced errors, and communicate across all aspects of the project far more economically and easily. And the way we do this at SITECH and Trimble is we build all the equipment and technology from the ground up, dedicated to the construction industry, but with very, very good knowledge and understanding of both the geospatial aspect, the BIM modeling, so that it's the connection right at the heart of it all, but it transcends throughout effectively from a greenfield site to the actual completed works or project. A recent study by McKinsey Global, an institute around the industry itself, suggests that really by adding the technology to create a connected construction site, it can reduce the overall project cost by 4 to 6% and increase, as I said earlier, by as much as 30–40% depending on what it is. The next area is just error reduction. It's a key area within construction, and error reduction is all about ensuring the job's done right first time, every time. And if we look at accuracy and quality, by automating project workflows and delivering the highest possible accuracy for site positioning, setting out and measurement of machine control, it really does enable us to save on errors and also save then on the rework of them, going back to the previous of time saved, cost saved. With rapid updates of two-way data, we're able to minimize the chance of work being carried out that isn't correct, or if something's changed on that day. It gives us better visibility, as we said earlier, in terms of the project information, and it's readily available to the office, which can be given to a client in terms of progress update, or even making sure everything's working to plan, or spotting potential hazards or pitfalls. And then with the up-to-date insight of data, the data can be used proactively, looking at what's to happen next, or retrospectively, what could have gone well, as I said earlier. So it really does help us drive better, more articulate decisions. On to cost control. Another area that's really important to SITECH, to Trimble, and our customers, is our ability to improve the cost efficiency of the projects. If we look at it in terms of estimating, by utilizing the knowledge, we've got less error, we've got more accurate understanding of what materials we'll need to build. We don't have to build in as much budgeting for, these deviations or the discrepancies. And it means we can keep on track of budget through the planning and the progress tracking throughout. Waste throughout the industry is probably one of the key focal areas of the business. And machine control and the connected site really enables us to hone in on that detail. All this and the connected site then also helps really, really cut delays. Whether it's machine downtime because you've got reduced service frequency, replacement of wearable parts, less overdig, so the job's right first time. It's a much, much smoother workflow, and the resource planning can be far more accurate than ever before. And that's both in terms of the operators, the equipment, but then also the project. we're far more streamlined throughout all the different components of a project. And finally, we come to competitiveness. All of what I've said above and all our competition all know that we've got a vast array of products, both machines, both site positioning equipment and software. But it's really about how we as organizations, and specifically contractors, subcontractors, plant hire, equipment plant hire, can really become more competitive. It's really there to ensure that you're ready to compete at all times and ensure that, we're ready for the new activity now. We need to be able to make sure we can win more work. And by being more cost effective, jobs completed on the right time, and using information to stay one step ahead of the project, we can stay one step ahead of the competition. And with our ability to be more competitive, we've got better margins. So if we look at, and I use the term we, because it is a partnership with our customers and also the technology providers, we're all looking to improve margins. And with better cost control, we're able to better price customers without sacrificing the margins. And actually, we're all going to benefit out of this, both in terms of the end customer, in terms of our operators, the clients, the project managers. It's all deriving around better control. And part of that, quite simply, is just by completing jobs faster. If we look at the comparison of a technology job where we've used, machine control or site positioning versus those that don't, those technology savvy customers really, really have seen the improvements that it provides them without compromising on quality. And by embracing this digital transformation that's happening right now and will continue to do so over the next few years, it's the great opportunity to be within the industry and really take advantage of the benefits that it brings and future-proof the organisational success. So that's just about it from me, and it's probably time to wrap up. But I hope that this discussion has given you the opportunity and the insight in terms of what a connected site can do for you. A connected site is and really should be viewed as the contractor's secret weapon for improving productivity, the safety, and our ability to compete. So the question to our customers are, what are you waiting for? And with that, so all that's left for me to do is to say thank you for your time. It's been great to speak with you or present to you. So let's take some questions.
And thank you very much. Let's go straight to the questions, or you've already been asking your questions using the Q&A box on your screen. And let's start with this one from James. If it's becoming more important for companies to use technology like this, is there a chance that smaller companies will be left behind because either they're unable to afford the spend on new technology or they're unwilling to take the risk? They can think of other places that might have a more urgent call on the capital.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I saw it pop up in the chat and I wanted to cover it off in this discussion. I think that the question's valid. I think what SITECH and our competitors are able to do more than ever before is we can provide a number of solutions to support some of the smaller contractors or those who want to get into the technology, don't necessarily understand how it works or the benefits for them. So we offer a range of both rented products, so it's a lower cost investment. Customers can rent it out as per the contract that they need it for. We're also able in certain instances to provide a trial of the equipment so people can get to understand how it works, the benefits and what it really means for them as a business in terms of operators, projects, etc. And that will give them a little bit more of assurance in terms of, yes, this is the right investment for me and how that would go about working. And then what we will do with that, whether it's purchased, rented or trialed, will provide the training in terms of how to get the best out of the equipment. So whilst we want, my opinion is that people need to adopt it, what we're doing in the background is making sure that we're not alienating any customer in terms of the size or the technical understanding of it, to really embrace it and move with the times and go on that journey with us. And to be honest, that's where Declan, we as an organisation have really invested our time with customers, and most of the customers we have definitely gone on a journey, and that's a learning journey, both in terms of trusting in SITECH and the Trimble as an organisation and brand, but then going and exploring and discovering how the technology really is transforming their businesses.
A couple of questions about how the technology actually works behind the scenes. Is your technology capable of monitoring the overall CO2 levels produced by plant on site. The more efficient and productive a site is, then the less CO2 is produced. But can this be measured?
So, to be honest with you, I'm going to have to get back to that specific question in terms of what it can and can't do. We are launching various platforms, and if you think about all the different engine brands and manufacturers, as Europe's going into stage 5 emission controls and the ability for CAN bus to specifically tell what's being burnt. There is functionality. So Trimble have launched WorksOS, which we're launching to the market this year, which provides an overall machine stroke project monitoring facility. We don't yet know how that's going to be plugged in. But what I'll do is, if you can forward me, and I'll forward my details onto the individuals who asked the question, I'm going to look at how specifically we can get into that branch of CO2 measurement. Fundamentally, hours operated versus projected, and actually then completed, you can calculate your time saved. So you should be able to work out, your CO2 per hour based on that.
Okay, what we'll do is I'll ask you, Ian, if you can put your LinkedIn details into the chat, and then Donovan, who asked the question, can pick it up from there and make their own inquiries. This question, without a name, would the system integrate with a machine fitted with a competitor's system on site?
It's a little bit of a wide question. So there's various builds that SITECH can provide in terms of the Trimble. So we have a basic 2D overlay, which is effectively a base install kit, which is based on the frame of the machine, and it plugs into the CAN bus system, and then onto which we provide a cab kit. You can give it 2D machine control, 3D, or you can go fully automated. The challenge that we and our competitors have, whether it's Topcon, like a Trimble, they're all quite bespoke systems. So can you plug into a specific Deutsch connector that Leica may have? Sometimes the answer is no, but more often what we're seeing as more and more machines come into the market, they're already enabled with technology. So effectively, it can be a plug and play system that runs on it. But there's nothing to stop, and we see it quite a lot in the rental arena, where you might have a competitor brand base install and a Trimble SITECH base install, and then based on customer preference, then you can put on the cab kit. My vision of what the future is, and I think this is one of the questions that came out earlier within Aidan's speech, is in terms of those behaviours that are coming out into the marketplace. The more and more people adopt, the more the industry goes towards it in terms of, the general market direction. And there will be a point in the not too distant future, in my opinion, where the machinery, whether it's cat excavator, Hitachi, Komatsu, JCB, doesn't really matter which, have their own integrated systems on there, and then we all plug and utilize those systems.
Okay, Ian Barnes, thank you very much for your remarks and for your answers to our questions as well. Just to tell you that in the chat box now, you'll find the link for the LinkedIn page for SITECH, so you can go and contact them directly if you have any further inquiries. On Twitter, on social media, the hashtag for this event is Efficient Future 2021. Next, we're going to hear from Joshua Marshall of Topcon Positioning Systems, where he is a strategic and OEM account manager. He's going to talk about the Smooth Ride workflow. That's Topcon's exclusive non-optical 3D paving machine control solution. Welcome, please, Josh Marshall.
Welcome and thanks for joining. I'm Ian Barnes, Head of Business for SITECH UK and Ireland. SITECH are the UK and Ireland's distributor for Trimble.
Hi, welcome to Topcon. My name is Joshua Marshall. I'm the Business Development Manager for Topcon Positioning GB, and I look after the Paving and Compaction division. I'd like today to talk to you through a couple of products, ranging from 2D to 3D and our non-optical solution that we're offering into the market. So in the paving division, we can offer a variety of different products to suit different applications. 2D machine control is probably the most common in the market to date. So from sonic trackers to anywhere up to laser receivers. LPS is probably one of the most common 3D machine control products in the market for paving. We also offer that here at Topcon. LPS GPS is a hybrid of both options between LPS, so total station, and GPS. Single millimeter GPS, which is an exclusive product here from Topcon. Dual millimeter GPS which is also again a exclusive product from Topcon, and Smooth Ride, which I'd like to talk to you today. That's also an exclusive product from Topcon. For those who don't know, 2D machine control is a common product in the UK, and it consists of most commonly a 2D sonic tracker. And the sonic tracker references to the ground and controls the toe point of the machine, adjusting the level. And this is an automatic machine control solution. LPS machine control, which is via total station, which is the most common 3D choice in the market at the moment. The problem with LPS machine control is the surveying aspect, not only during the paving or milling operation, but also during collecting the data. It means that someone has to be on site during the paving operation and also during data collection with a total station, so during live traffic. The optical 3D solution via total station is on the left and the non-optical solution is on the right. So we use GPS position and then 2D, it's a hybrid option between 2D and 3D. The non-optical benefits are no requirement for a total station on the job site. No on-site surveyor needed. So it means that we remove less employees from the site and in between heavy plant. So normally during the paving operation, someone would have to be behind the paver with a surveying kit to verify what the paver is actually laying. We remove all that. Limited setup of equipment. So there's no need to set up the total station equipment, all the equipment on the machine. Everything stays on the machine. And then we would just turn the machine on the start of the shift. And as long as we have a GPS signal, everything works with the conventional paving method. Also works better in different weather conditions and at night. So one of the issues with LPS and optical equipment is it has to have line of sight, and also it during wet conditions and cloudy conditions, it limits the accuracy of the paving and milling operation. Removes the total station range and obstruction issue. So a total station and an LPS operation has to have line of sight, and also there is a range to a total station. So if we have an obstruction issue, it can cause issues for the machine. So we remove all that with Smooth Ride. No specialist training required. So this is for the operators that are on site. There's no specialist training needed. As long as we have a GPS signal, everything works alongside the conventional paving and milling operations. We have an OEM integration. So we have an OEM integration with Virgin at the moment. And that allows us to be able to take control of the screed width, take control of the depth that we are milling or paving. And also it allows us to take control of the steering. So we can allow other operators on the paver or the milling machine to do other jobs, other operations, whether that be just to keep them out of harm's way off the site, or whether that means to allow them to do other jobs on the job site, operating other bits of plant, which allows us for sort of semi-autonomous paving. And I can talk to you a little bit more about that further in the presentation. So really for us, what are the benefits to profile planing and profile paving? We get a smoother road for the road owner. So they get a smoother IR, what we call IRI, which is International Roughness Index. And that removes extensive pressure to the asphalt, causing an irregular surface. And increases the lifespan of the road. So if we can increase the smoothness, it's less pressure and less wear on the asphalt, and it's also less wear on the vehicles that are traveling over it. Strategic planning. So scanning can be done without road closures and at night. and I can talk to you a little bit more about the process and what we can offer. Scan data allows for analysis of current condition of their strategic road network. So scanning can be done in regular intervals, so we can see deterioration of roads, and we can also see potholes, and we can also then create a strategic resurfacing plan based on factual data. So rather than ripping up perfectly good roads, we can put a strategic resurfacing plan together so that we can target specific roads that need to be resurfaced. The environmental impact, which is something that's extremely important to everyone at the moment, which removal of unnecessary resurfacing weight or surfacing waste. So, as I mentioned, a strategic resurfacing plan means that we can target areas that need to be resurfaced and leave areas that are perfectly good. Material is precisely calculated while still meeting requirements. So profile planing allows us to save material in areas that we need to, and that's including with improving IRI and the lifespan of the road, and it reduces remedial work. Once the data is collected, there is no need to revisit site for analysis or design. So once we've collected the data, and the collection of data is fairly straightforward to do, there's no need to revisit the site. We have all the information that we need. Scanning can be completed regular to monitor the existing surface. So we can look at the existing surface, we can monitor it. So the benefits to the surfacing contractor, and first of all, improvement of efficiency and quality. The scan data allows contractors to work with their clients to achieve the best outcome. Accuracy of calculated mill and fill quantities. So as you'll see later on in the presentation, the software allows us to calculate mill and fill quantities accurately. Paving at consistent thicknesses to increase compaction results. So the copy paving that I'll talk to you a little bit further in the presentation. Automated variable depth milling and paving improves the end-to-end quality of the product. So that allows us to, once we have profile plane, to lay in nominal thickness, or as some contractors are not able to be in control of the milling operation, variable depth paving can improve IRI, but improves the overall quality. So compliance, the data captured during the workflow proves the increase in quality. So as we run through the smooth ride workflow, the data that's been captured can be produced for BIM or as built, and that's all almost for free inside the package. And I can explain a little bit more to you about that. Safety, so the reduction for employees on site, which is a key perspective for the safety. No employees trapped between plant, for example, between the paver and the roller. So conventional 3D needs someone to be in between that paver and that roller, which we want to reduce and remove. So for the consumer, that's all of us, everyone that drives on, whether it be a Highways England strategic road network or whether it be a council road. It's a smoother driving experience, a safer driving experience. There's been multiple occasions where IRI is taken to a dangerous level on some of the strategic road network, and we want to be able to remove that. Improved MPG or distance for electric vehicles, which is something that Highways England are severely keen to promote and push, is that, you know, electric vehicles are a lot more common now on our roads, and they want to be able to get the most miles per charge. And one of the prime factors is improving the RRI or the smoothness. Less wear on the vehicles, less wear on the suspension and the drivetrain. Less road closures, which is a key point. Our workflow allows us to collect the data during driving speeds, which means that there's no need for road closures. And a cleaner approach on the environment, which is a key part for, I think, most people in the UK. More value to the taxpayers' money. And I think that comes from primarily the resurfacing structure and the resurfacing drive. We can plan and schedule this work all during the data collection phase. So what is Smooth Ride? Smooth Ride is a workflow. So it starts from data collection to design to milling or paving, compaction, and then back to scanning. I've just got a quick video that I'd like to run through.
The first requirement is to get an accurate depiction of the road surface. Our road surface scanner gathers a precise map of the entire surface at normal highway speeds, collecting the data you need with more information than a survey crew could provide. The next step is to create a design that meets the tolerances and specifications required. Optimizing and customizing the millions of data points necessary for creating your design file is made easy with Magnet Road Resurfacing software. Once the design is created, it is sent directly to your equipment, allowing milling and paving to begin almost immediately. Equipped with our 3D machine control, the milling machine knows its position on the road at all times. With automated, variable depth milling now a reality, you can now mill to the exact depth necessary, creating perfect mill-to-fill optimization and the smoothest surface possible for your paver to follow. Material costs can quickly turn profit to a loss. Paving with Smooth Ride assures rideability while eliminating waste and cost overruns. By managing your material properly across your entire project, you'll never be too thick or thin. Utilizing the same job files generated for your milling and paving machines, operators know exactly when and where to compact, which prevents over-compacting and increases efficiency. Advanced temperature sensors inform the operator exactly when to begin, and the touchscreen control box keeps track of how many passes have been made. As your compaction processes are in action, your rollers are gathering as-built data on the road surface. As more DOTs require intelligent compaction standards, Smooth Ride will keep you miles ahead.
So that's just a quick overview of what Smooth Ride is in the workflow. So as we mentioned, it's a hybrid between 2D and 3D machine control. So we use GPS antennas to get the position of the machine, and then we use 2D sonic trackers to be able to get the height or the depth. So the scanning operation, we use what we call our RDM1 scanner, and that's an exclusive product from Topcon. And our RDM1 scanner is a LiDAR scanner that is GPS overlaid, and it collects millions of data points. It gives an accurate scan of the existing surface. So we can scan at 80 kilometers an hour, which is about 50 miles per hour. And that can be done in lane 1, lane 2, and lane 3 of a motorway, for example. So we can keep up with traffic, and our data that we collect can be automatically filtered to remove out things like passing vehicles. And whilst we're collecting that data, the ideal, our data and our software that collecting allows you to see a really good picture of the data that you've been collecting. So if you miss a particular point, or you miss a particular spot, you can go back around and collect that data again. So out of those millions of data points that we collect, we create what you call a DTM, which is a digital terrain model. And that digital terrain model, we then create a design. And from that design, that goes directly into the milling machine or the paver, depending on which is the most likely option for the client or the contractor. So once we have that milling operation or that design, we do what we call variable depth milling. So it allows us to create a completely flat surface ready for the paver to then lay a nominal thickness over the top. And it's becoming very, very desired in the market. Once we've variable depth milled, we can then scan the existing surface again, so the milled surface, and go back with smooth ride paving. Or, as I mentioned, sometimes the cannot always be in control of the milling operation. We can scan the existing surface, whether it be an undulated surface, and then we can variable depth pave back, which is very similar. We get very similar results, if not better than an averaging beam. And all this time, because we have the existing surface, our software allows us to tailor the requirements so that we don't overcompensate on material. And as mentioned in the video, once we have the data that's been collected, we can put that also into the compactor, and the roller will then say exactly where to compact and where not to compact to meet the full requirements. Then once we've produced the existing road, once we've produced the new road, we can go back and scan for the as-built. So I'll just give you a quick run through of our RDM1 scanner. And the RDM1 scanner produces a point cloud, which is all fully GPS overlaid. And that is the point cloud that's produced. And as I mentioned, we put that into a DTM. So that's the DTM from that point cloud. And then we put that into our Magnet Office resurfacing. And our Magnet Office resurfacing is a really good software. It gives you plan view, profile view, and more, cross section, which is really important to be able to look at cambers, water drainage, etc. And all the time that you're making these tweaks and these specifications, in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see the volume calculation. So every adjustment that you make to the milling or paving design will change that volume calculation. We can set limits. So from certain chainage, from chainage A to chainage B, we can set minimum and maximum thicknesses. So what the operator wants to mill, or what the operator wants to fill, or the contractor wants to fill. This is massive for minimum depth requirements, and this design and this process can actually prove minimum depth requirement and what's able to be offered, and make sure that the contractor meets the client's specifications. So we can offer cross slopes and cross falls as well that can be automatically milled or paved via profile planing or profile paving. So if we have a particular area where we want to change the camber or the cross slope of the existing road, we can do that all in the software. And as I mentioned, once we've done the milling design or the paving design, we can then move straight onto the report. So we can get a mill and fill quantity report that can go either to the contractor or the client. And it allows us really to be able to offer to the contractor or the client the right specifications to the right tonnage. If there is an issue with the existing road and the contractor doesn't know about it, when you take the scanner out and you scan that existing surface, we are able to explain without visiting site what the issues are, where the issues are, and what we need to do to change it, whether that be more material, whether that be a change in the client specifications, and we can do that without even stepping foot onto site, which I think is a massive benefit to the client and the contractor. So really, that's all from Topcon on the Smooth Ride. Thank you very much for listening, and I will be at the conference, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have. Thank you.
Joshua, thank you very much. Let's take some of the questions that are already in the Q&A box. This one from a participant who hasn't shared their name with us. How many projects in the UK civil sector is this in use?
Thank you very much. We have used Smooth Ride on multiple projects across the UK. Two that we've done recently. One of them being, the first one that we did with major was Silverstone Racetrack, and we fully profile planed with tarmac and NRP. And then we've done two recent projects, one of them being an airport, and then the second one being a specialist test circuit. We are using Smooth Ride on a variety of different projects across the UK.
Silverstone's a pretty decent high-profile example to quote.
Yeah, very, very good.
Which leads to the next question, which is, what is the accuracy of the workflow? If you're doing it for F1, you've got to be good.
Yeah, there's a certain different variety of workflows that we can do. Some that can be even tied with GPS accuracy is limited, and we can work around the GPS accuracy by a different workflow, and we can get it as accurate as total station. It requires a little bit more work and a little bit more survey aspect to create certain profiles and certain localizations. But once we do that, we can stake out to as verifiable by a total station, which is a really good result.
Okay, Joshua, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us today. Now, as we have mentioned already, the construction industry is looking to cut emissions drastically, and our next speaker can provide insights into how these emissions will impact on the future of construction machinery. He is John Day of Yanmar, where he is General Manager, and he's going to talk about Stage 5 emissions and Yanmar's engine solution. John, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Day, a VP Barris. I'm the General Manager of the Industrial Division, and here to talk to you today about the Yanmar range and the Stage 5 emissions and what's been done to the engines to meet those emission regulations. The Yanmar range is made up of two sections. There's the air-cooled range, which is the L48, L70 and L100, which goes up to 6.8 kilowatts from 3.4. And then there's the Yanmar water-cooled range, which goes from 8 kilowatts up to now 155 kilowatts with the recent additional engines that have been added to the range. The L series engine, the air-cooled engine, as you can see there in the photograph, that is used on many applications on the building sites, from cement mixers to generators, power packs, pumps, a whole myriad of items, but very, very popular on building site applications. The three engines is the L48, which starts at 3.4 kilowatts, the L70 being 4.8, and the L100V being 6.8. The Stage 5 emissions came into being in 2019 January, and it's the first time that engines below 19 kilowatts in Europe were affected. The main effect on this was a particulate matter level, and the engines obviously had to be modified to try and meet that level. The range of engines up to 56 kilowatts was affected on January 2019, and 56 kilowatts up was introduced in January 2020. Of course, the emission levels in the States had already been in place for some time. The air-cooled engine range commenced in 1956 was the world's smallest air-cooled diesel. And then obviously you can see the timeline there of the engine developments up to what we have now with the LV, the latest stage 5 engines. From the LA series, which was introduced in 1989, to the LV as we see it today, the development of the engine was, a lot of it is internal, with the external footprint, etc., remaining pretty much the same. But I shall explain as we go through. As you can see, there's many engines been produced in the last 60 years. The water-cooled range, with Yanmar introduced, being founded in 1912, but the first engines there in 1933. And again, the development of the engines, you can see the course of history to what we have now with the latest TMV engine range. When you think of where it's come from, and when the engines were in the 1980s is where the CARB regulations first came in, the emission levels that we meet today are something quite significant. And in fact, at the time, I'm sure nobody dreamt that the engines would be the emission levels that they are today. So with more than 100 years under a belt, I think Yanmar have got some good experience behind them. L series. The features you can see, the engine there is pretty standard. The direct injection system has been with Yanmar air-cooled engines for many years, and is a big part of what is happening today. The internal changes have been with the piston design and the injection porting, etc. So a combination of things there, but Yanmar are in control of their own injection system, which is quite unique and has helped them develop something which meets the stage 5 levels today. On the L70 and the L100, the two bigger engines, there is no DOC arrangement. It's all internal. There's an EGR system on there to assist with the combustion system. There's various other things as well that have been done that you can see from the inside of the engine, not necessarily from the outside. The L48V, which is the smallest engine in the range, that has a DOC diesel oxidation catalyst within it, and I'll show you that detail shortly. The engines also are complete with counterbalance arrangement, which enables the engine to keep smooth during operation. Yanmar, as I mentioned, has their own direct injection technology since 1980, and is probably one of the only companies diesel manufacturer that is in charge of its own fuel equipment in-house. This with the combustion design, you get the maximum efficiency controlled by Yanmar, and as I say, with their own injection system, it enables them to control everything. The high performance DOC arrangement, which is on the L48V, you can see they're in red. In this particular graphic, you can see that it's actually part of the exhaust system, connecting straight onto the exhaust manifold, but we do have a remote system which I can show you shortly. But Yanmar's DOC is maintenance free. It's engine for life design, so that should stay with you until the engine finishes its time. So there's no filter in here, there's no extra maintenance. It's just a bolt on, and it's dead easy. The counterbalance, part of the today's requirements is the smoothness and operator comfort. So the counterbalance side arrangement here gives low vibration and low noise levels. So what are the advantages? Well, the direct injection technology gives you good fuel economy and total cost of ownership being down as low as possible. The engines are very simple design, and as I mentioned, there was a minimum disruption going from the LA up to the LV over the years. So simple design, easy to install and maintain. Yanmar has always been had in front with the technology leadership to meet the emission regulations, as shown above there, the DOC being part of that. And the counterbalance arrangement, as I mentioned, generates the low noise and operator's comfort. The features on the engine are easy access to adjust and replace. Everything is on the outside basically. So you'd have a fuel limiter control, speed control, high idle setting, fuel injection nozzle, and fuel injection pump, all available to be maintained from the outside of the engine and accessible from the outside of the engine. As I mentioned, the other change internally is an EGR, which is on the L70 and the L100. But basically, the design has remained simple and maintenance friendly. So this is the key driver of Yanmar, to stay as minimal disruption as possible. So the lineup with the LN in the past was the LM48, 70 and L100 again. These engines are still available for export use, and because obviously they don't meet the latest emission, but the change to the LV meeting the emissions meant there was a slight reduction in power, very minimal on the L48V, as you can see. The L70 again very minimal, and the L100V slightly more. But the changeover in applications from the LN to the LV, we've not really seen any issues with that, and the production's carried on fine. They do have the common blocks, so there was no change in the blocks between the LN and LV. So basically, there was a complete drop-in fit for easy installation. Again, as little disruption as possible. The DOC without the silencer, as I mentioned a bit earlier, you can see here. So if a customer has his own exhaust system, if the installation is very, very tight and they want a remote exhaust, this just needs to be ordered with the engine. So it's self-contained, and then you can mount on from there. The important thing, of course, is to make sure that the engine, there's little back pressure on here to stay within limits if you're doing your own silencer arrangement. But our application engineers can help you with all that regarding the installation details. Also, you can see from here is there is a mechanism here to protect the fuel limiting control. This is because you can't mess around too much with it because it does affect the emissions. So this is protected by Yanmar. But as you can see, everything else is available from this side. There's two differences between the engine. Again, the footprint, the basic design of the engine, very little effect. And these are a list of typical customers who've made that transition to the LV engine some years ago, and are now commonly known in the marketplace. And I guess a lot of you will recognize these people and being products used on many building sites. So TMV, the water-cooled stage 5, slightly different. The range, as I mentioned, goes from 8 kilowatts to 155. Emission regulations, just to remind you again when they came in, again, starting in January 2019. Key features. So to meet these regulations on the water-cooled engine, there's a common rail fuel system, which is pretty mandatory. Direct injection combustion system on the engines above 19 kilowatts, which Yanmar have maintained for many, many years. Diesel particulate filter together with the DOC all-in-one section here leading to the exhaust. Now, the particulate filter is mandatory to be able to use to control the particulate levels. So that's why it's introduced as standard on engines above the 19 kilowatt side. Cooled EGRs, that's again part of Yanmar's design. And of course, with the ECUs and all the sensor controls there are in the engine to make sure that it's maintaining its limits, or continue being monitored. So with these modern engines above 19 kilowatts, you get a regeneration system. And there are 3 steps in that regeneration, which I'll talk about shortly. There's the assist, the reset, and the stationary. The air management control system, again, there's an EGR mapping these all the sensors and mapping the EGR rates and ensuring that the engine is maintained to a certain level. Also, with the particulate detection, the calculated method means that this is the sensor controlling the figures and telling the ECU what to do. The pressure method, of course, as well, is when it gets into the filter. As the filter gets clogged, you will see the pressure differential, and this will tell the ECU what to do with the engine controls. The direct injection combustion system, as mentioned, with anything above 19 kilowatts, below 19 kilowatts, Yanmar is using indirect injection, but for this technology in the bigger size engine, this in conjunction with the common rail system is used. The other feature that Yanmar is quite unique is that on the machining of the cylinder block, there is a system here where this item here simulates a head, so the pressure, the combustion, the cylinder is under pressure when they're machining it. Gives you a much better tighter tolerance. So returning to my comment on the regeneration, so basically, as the engines perform through their life, the engine, the particulate matter and the soot will build up into the DPF. So all the time that the engine is running, the operator will not feel this. This assist regen is happening all the time seamlessly in the background. So basically what it's doing is ensuring that the engine maintains an exhaust temperature of 350 degrees, and this is controlled by an air intake throttle. So basically, as the engine is lighter loaded, then the throttle will operate, sensing by the ECU to try and maintain that engine at that level. So this prevents oil dilution and promotes low fuel consumption. The reset regen, again happening in the background, the operator won't know anything about it. Again, this is happening approximately every 100 hours to ensure that the soot is clear, and so there'll be if you like, a major clean session at that 100-hour point when the engine is going up to exhaust temperature of 600 degrees, using a post-injection assistance with that, which will give you a complete regeneration. And again, both of these here will be running in the background. The operator will not realize. The stationary regen really is for emergencies only. So if there is a situation where the engine has been, say the engine has been delayed in its reset regen, which can be done, there is a system that the customer can, or the operator can, override the regen. But if that's done too many times, then you certainly will need a stationary regen, but the engine will go into a different mode. So this is really for emergencies only. So, as mentioned, this is all going on in the background without the operator knowing or needing to do anything. And it will also cater for any loads and an altitude compensation as well. This shows the Yanmar system internally compared to some of the competition, whereas you can see here that the air intake flow, the temperature in and the pressure in is monitored, and the pressure out and the temperature out is also measured. The EGR flow, also the temperature of this. So while all these things are being monitored here, and this gas flow calculation ensures that the engine maintains its level and that the ECU is controlling what goes on. With some of the alternatives, it's on the air intake only, which is basically airflow pressure and temperature. So as you can see, Yanmar's technology slightly different to some of the alternatives on the market. So moving on to the original calculation with the EGR flow calculation. As I say, there's many hours of field testing done to ensure that this system works very, very well. The calculated method, again, is taking all the sensors into its control, loads, speed, all maintained with the ECU. The pressure, again, the information sent back from the pressure method sensor controls what the soot filter in and out. So based on fuel, gas flow calculations and field test results, the Yanmar engine has been produced as it is today and can produce the regeneration on time. As mentioned, the DI technology is still there on the engines above 90 kilowatts. Below 90 kilowatts, it's IDI. Below 90 kilowatts, Yanmar is still doing its own fuel equipment because the engine is still mechanical below 19 kilowatts, but meeting the stage 5 limits. This again uses a standard fuel equipment arrangement that you would see using for stage 3A. So using the ECU control since 1989 in the early stages of the Yanmar technology, but for stage 5 it's mandatory above the 19 kilowatts. So this, in combination with the common rail and the fuel injection system, enables us to meet the stage 5 limits. So with their superior knowledge and fuel injection control, gives you the ideal economy and the best optimized combustion. This gives you an idea of some of the particulate outputs. So you've there got Yanmar is extremely low in this area, and with the NOx and the hydrocarbons too being controlled into a very low output. So basically, reduction of the exhaust emission from all those inputs. Machining, again, as I mentioned earlier, the simulated head, the bores will be machined under pressure, and the head will be very closely monitored. It gives you high accuracy machining on all the blocks. It's quite unique for industrial engines to adopt this machining system, but it does reduce the lube oil consumption drastically and prevents oil dilution while giving you durability and reliability. Benefit to the customer. So you have the three-step regeneration, as we mentioned, the air management control, direct injection, the particulate detection, the machining, as we mentioned, and the common rail. First thing, to meet the industrial levels, that's the first point, and also final tier 4 for the USA. So the engines above 19 kilowatts is good to go for stage 5 and final tier 4 in the USA. The DPF is fitted in this arrangement is good for at least 6,000 hours and maybe more, which actually in many of the pieces of equipment is possibly the lifetime of the engine. The DPF is compact, so you can see the dimensions typically here on these two, the 3.3 litre and the 2.1 litre, which again, going from stage 3A to stage 5, the installation into various vehicles and applications to be as small as possible is ideal, because it is a challenge. Environmental friendly, again, this is one of the key things, of course, we're all driving towards. So there's a advantage, and of course the low lube oil consumption. It's quite interesting, going from stage 3A down to up to the stage 5. The reduction is from 50 to 70%. So it's quite a drastic reduction in the oil. But with all the other things I've mentioned as well, it means that with the DPF, gives you a low ash and low emission. So as we say, there's a lot of testing going on. So over 70,000 machines now out in the market, 80,000 in ag and turf, 70,000 in construction. So over 200,000 common rail engines installed in wide set of applications since the introduction in 2016 with Yanmar. This will be some names that you'll know in the UK market that are all fitting the stage 5 engines now. So I guess these will all be known to you. And I'm pleased to say that many UK OEMs we've secured with the Yanmar stage 5 engines. You'll be seen on the market very, very soon. This gives you the lineup arrangement for Europe for the stage 5. So again, as you can see here, below 19 kilowatts, the engines there highlighted in green. They're indirect injection, but still mechanical. And the two here in blue are also mechanical, but they're DI engines. So anything above the 90 kilowatt range, as I say, has that full system of EGR, DPF, DOC, and common rail. This is just listing the engines again used in Europe and those used in the States, just to give you an idea what's going on there. The challenge as well with the installations we mentioned is where the DPF is mounted. So as you can see here, typically on the stage 5 engines, the DPF DOC is mounted across the bell housing here, which will be very, very similar to it was at stage 5 with just the exhaust silencer across here. So again, going from the stage 5 to stage 3A to stage 5, we tried to keep the disruption as low as possible, but there are some challenges to that as well. Other options that we have to this standard layout is having the DPF DOC above the exhaust manifold, flywheel side, and the other option being fan side gives you two extra options to the for the installation. There's one other option as well, which is should it be required, is where the the DPF DOC is required to be fitted remote. It is better to be as close as you can to the exhaust outlet to maintain the temperatures, but Yanmar with their system, with the throttle valve and everything, this is a possible option if required. So as you can see from here, the wiring system, the engine will have its own, everything in red here, Yanmar will supply that wiring with the engine. As you can see, the ECU will be monitoring various of these sensors, so the EGR valve, the intake throttle, supply pump, engine connector, and various sensors here, all talking through the ECU. Now, on many occasions, the customers tend to put, depending on the application, the machine that's involved, tend to put their own wiring harnesses on here to the ECU and then onto their panels. But Yanmar, we can supply all of this now with the Yanmar wiring system and panel should you require it. This is quite a good picture because it's a very open installation, but it shows you a better view of the engine with its with the radiator fitted and with the DOC DPF on top here, so you can see how that's installed. But I can assure you there's many installations which are much tougher than this and are quite a challenge. So to finish off with, Yanmar have now gone one step further. They've now introduced a 5-year warranty, 5,000 hours, which I think is a fantastic move forward. And this applies to the TMV Stage 5 engines, which have been released since January this year. So if you need more information on this, please come and talk to us. But this certainly for me is a statement from Yanmar that they have confidence in their engines and will be standing behind it. And also with the new technology that's involved, it should take away some of the concerns of the end users. So I hope you've just given you a bit more of an insight, and hopefully this will enable you to understand a bit more about what Yanmar have done to meet the Stage 5 regulations. So thank you for your time, and look forward to hearing from you in the future. Okay, thanks very much. Bye now.
Thank you very much, John, for that comprehensive presentation. You sort of answered the one key question that's in the box already, which was asking, will we have stage 6 for vehicle emissions? Of course, that is the next stage. In terms of European law, of course.
Yes.
How does Brexit affect that? Do you know?
Well, I think that there's because the CE mark, for example, in the UK, we're going to have the UK mark, so that'll affect machines the way they're built, I guess, as a complete machine, because an engine is only an incorporation part of the machine. So, but quite rightly, I think we'd have to stay if there is a UK emission separate from Europe. Certainly at the moment, we'd have to stay with the same levels. I can't see there being two different standards in across. I would have thought whatever happens, it should stay the same. But
and you mentioned, of course, the different global standards, and you found that global operations companies go for the highest standard that meets all the particular boxes. Anyway, John, thank you very much for that. We move on now to our final speaker, who will give us the grand overview of the issues that plant industry companies face. That is from Kevin Minton. He's the Chief Executive of the Construction Plant Hire Association. He's been with the CPA for many years, and he's now going to give us his perspective on the general outlook for the industry and how plant hire can lead to a better future. Let's welcome Kevin Minton.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Kevin Minton. I'm Chief Executive of Construction Plant Hire Association. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk with you this morning. I'm going to talk about some of the work that CPA does and our approach to bringing about collective beneficial outcomes. But firstly, let me share some slides with you. So Construction Plant Hire Association, we look after construction plant. The name is in the title. That means diggers, dozers, dumpers, tower cranes, mobile cranes. Pretty well everything that you find on a construction plant in the UK is potentially within our scope of interest. That construction plant, of course, is used by construction companies and by civils contractors, but mostly, although it is used by the contractors, it's actually owned by the hire companies. And those hire companies will hire it out on a daily, weekly or monthly basis, sometimes with an operator and sometimes without an operator. And under those circumstances, of course, the contractor will put their own operator on, or they'll get an operator from an agency to drive the machine. The scale of the industry in the UK means that about 85% of construction plant in the UK is actually hired in from those specialist plant hire companies. We think the origin of this goes all the way back to the Second World War, when government, in the Board of Trade, Board of Works, intervened in the supply of construction plant just to make sure that it was actually available to everybody for reconstruction of the UK. The industry as a whole has got a £4 billion turnover, and we reckon that the fleet is probably worth £7 billion altogether. There are something like 2,000 hire companies in the UK and around about 300,000 people who can operate construction plant, have an operator card or are registered with one of the schemes. That means that actually construction plant operator is one of the most prevalent occupations in the UK construction industry. For our part, Construction Plant Hire Association, we're a trade association. That means that we represent the interests of our members who are employers and owners of construction plant. We've got about 1,800 members in total. Our role is to develop collective solutions. That's one of the things I'll be talking about today. But we also have a big role in representing the sector. For example, right now we're talking with Revenue and Customs around the change from red diesel to white diesel next year. We're talking to Treasury officials about capital allowances for construction plant. We continue to talk to other semi-government agencies like Health and Safety Executive and CITB about a range of issues pretty well every day of our working lives. Of course, we also educate and inform people within our sector and outside the sector as well, into the wider construction arena, but also outside construction into schools, colleges, and various other sectors. Our traditional areas of operation have been contract terms for hire and plant. Many of you will be familiar with the CPA model conditions of contract, safety and health issues, and skills and workforce issues. But recently it's become increasingly apparent that there are two other threads that we need to be working on as well. One is zero carbon, and the second is digitalization. I'll stop sharing at that point. Thinking about safety and health as one of our traditional areas of operation. Actually, we want construction to be a lot safer than it is right now. We want construction to be as safe as knitting. But at the same time, we also want construction to be an attractive place for people to work. We want construction to be as safe as knitting, but as attractive as motorsport. How can we as a trade association bring about those changes? But directly, of course, we can't. We can only encourage and influence. And one of our means for encouragement and influence is actually through the formation of safety guidance documents, formation of safety guidance policies, and the publication of guidance documents. We've got hundreds of guidance documents which have been produced by CPA, working in conjunction with Health and Safety Executive and lots of other organisations. All of those documents are free to download. Let me just share our website with you now. So, you'll see here the website page at CPA website showing one particular guidance document which we produced about 10 years ago on competence to operate construction plant. You'll see a few familiar diagrams there. And that is just one example of many documents that we have available there. All of these are free to download. So if you're interested in any of these subjects, go and have a look, get the document. Hopefully you will find it valuable. One of the advantages of working in a collaborative way, for example, this safe use of dumpers we produced in conjunction with the Civil Engineering Contractors Association. This one about MUPS was produced with a whole range of organisations, as you can see there, is that when members of those organisations see this guidance document, they'll recognise their trade association's logo. And hopefully they'll see it as being a safe and trusted authority. And they'll feel far more willing to adopt the guidance that's in there. We also, as I mentioned earlier, do a lot of work on skills and workforce. And we're heavily involved with a lot of work currently, amongst other areas, on working with plant card schemes. These are card schemes, some of which carry the CS logo, but not all of them. You'll be familiar with some of them, like CPCS and NPAWS and lots of others as well. What we want to be able to do with those card schemes is actually work with them and support them, whilst also supporting the employer, because ultimately it's the employer who is paying for this. We want to be able to help them optimize their activity and actually bring about the best and most reliable outcomes for the employer. So when the employer or the site safety agent or the supervisor or the client sees somebody with a particular card, they know what that card actually means. They know what it represents in terms of the person's competence, in terms of their CPD, and in terms of the reliability and authority and quality assurance around that. There's still quite a lot of work to do there. We think that there's a balance point to be struck, of course. We don't want card schemes to get overly complex, but on the other hand, if card schemes don't do enough, then the costs are just going to roll back on the employer. So we have to balance it out. Simple card scheme, cost for employer to carry out the training and assessment and also carry a risk. Much more complex card scheme, the cost starts to go back up again, because actually it costs a lot to administer that card scheme. The employer has to pay for that, or the employee has to pay for that. Somewhere in between the two, there's the right balance of management of what the card actually provides to help the responsible person manage risk on site against the cost of that. And we've recently formed a new organization, or helped form a new organization, to work collaboratively on that. So let me just share another screen here. Which is the Plant Sector Representative Organization. This is a brand new organization. We've been building it up over the last couple of years. It went slow during the pandemic, but has actually started to move again now. It's actually a cooperative venture amongst 7 organisations, as you can see there: Build UK, Seeker, ourselves, Federation of Piling Specialists, Home Builders Federation, National Federation for Demolition Contractors, and the Scottish Plant Owners Association. By bringing these organisations together and the 30 or so card schemes who've come along to the card schemes meetings, we think we can actually identify common values, identify common outcomes, and actually help those card schemes and the employers get the outcomes that they want. Those are our traditional areas of occupation, of application. But as I mentioned before, we're now working in new areas such as net zero carbon. Net zero carbon's interesting because it's doing a couple of things. We all recognise, I think now, that we need to reduce everybody's carbon footprint, and that includes construction industry and the plant hire sector. But right now, what the drive to net zero carbon is doing is really making people become very aware of the cost of fossil fuels, not the cost to the environment, but the cost to their pocket. And that's been brought about particularly recently by the imminent change from using red diesel to white diesel in April of next year. And that means that for some organisations, their diesel fuel cost is going to effectively double overnight. And that's suddenly made them very interested in diesel and diesel emissions. And following on from that, carbon footprint and carbon emissions. The UK economy as a whole, led by government, has got a target of reducing fossil fuel emissions, carbon emissions, by 78% by 2035. And we're setting out along the same path in construction plant sector. We're doing this through the Construction Leadership Council's Construct Zero initiative. And we're currently advising CLC and various other organisations about how individual organisations can reduce their carbon footprint. One way we can do that, of course, is changing the plant, changing from diesel to electric machine, or maybe hydrogen combustion or hydrogen fuel cells or other novel solutions not yet envisaged. But it's a long way to go there. If we look at the reality of it, there are some niche areas where it is possible to get a fairly good replacement for a diesel engine machine, get it replaced by an electric machine, battery operated machine. But there are still issues around charging availability on site and length of shift versus length of charging time. What's going to be an easier step for us to take in the near future is actually look at operators and operator behavior. We see from data coming to us through telematics that actually some machines spend a lot of time idling. And if they're idling, they're potentially wasting fuel. Now, when I was taught how to drive a diesel tractor a long time ago, I was told never turn a diesel engine off. Once you started in the morning, you let it run through to the end of the day. You even let it run through your shift breaks. Now, of course, we know that is no longer appropriate. Modern engines and modern lubricants and modern injection systems don't require diesel engines to be left running. How can we get that message across, not only to people who were taught a long time ago, but also to folks who might want to keep the engine running in order to keep the cab warm or because they just haven't got around to turning it off? Some employers have already launched eco-operator schemes, and those have brought about, significant reductions in fuel consumption. And these can be easily incentivized as well by encouraging employees to actually compete amongst one another, even if only to win a small cash prize. The employees get very quickly incentivized and actually can bring about some big reductions simply by stopping the machine when they can. So we're working with that employer to actually take, with one of our members, to take their training course and make it available in a much more widespread generic form as a free training package, not actually free training package to the industry as a whole. That brings me on to digitalization, because actually digitalization is one of the things which shone the light to show that machines spend a lot of time idling. Let me just go back to the slides here. One of the fascinating things about digitalization is that it doesn't actually do anything in itself, but it brings about great benefits and great efficiencies, either in simple, narrow programs or by allowing other programs and initiatives to be integrated. One of the things that we've seen in our little sector is that our traditional multi-part crane inspection pad, which is a nice fat pad of NCR paper, that the crane operator would use on a daily and weekly basis to record their inspections. That's rapidly being made obsolescent or obsolete by an app or a range of apps, which means the operator can walk around the crane recording the observations as they go. Brings other advantages as well as cutting down on paper. It means that the operator can take photos of what might be going wrong, send that back to base. Whoever's responsible at base for the machine immediately finds out what's wrong with it, which means that they can quickly program a remedy. Over a period of time, of course, it gives a great database of information about the health of the machine, the suitability of the machine for the environment that it's working in, and that can bring about some good benefits in terms of predictive maintenance schedules. On a more global basis, of course, we can see that a whole range of machines might spend a lot of time idling, and that gives us good information on how the machine, the task, and the site match, and operator behavior. But when we start moving into operator behavior issues, of course, then we start to think about data protection and that individual, as an individual worker, as an individual employee. How far is it right for the employer or the site supervisor to go to keep a record of that employee and their behavior? Of course, there are very many attractive ideas here about keeping digital logbooks or keeping fault records and things like that. But we mustn't approach these until we've got the right rules and governance procedures in place. And at CPA, we're working right now to help the industry form some governance rules around the sharing of personal data. A few pilot schemes are taking place right now, but there's still a lot to do there. So, collaborative approach. Why do we need a collaborative approach? Well, if there's conflict, of course, that just costs money. If there's uncertainty, that costs money. If there's duplication, that costs money. And if you've got the wrong standards, that costs money as well. How can we eliminate all of those things? Well, we think that we do it quite well through our collaborative approach. There are some key, some continuing aspects to the collaborative approach which we take. We're not unique in doing this. Many trade associations do it in construction and elsewhere. The first part is to have a multidisciplinary team. So we've actually got the right expertise around the table, bring in the right specialist areas of knowledge. But they also need to be looking out and about, knowing what else is going on, knowing what other work streams are in progress. The group as a whole needs to be very outcomes focused. It's very easy to concentrate on activity and think that you've done something simply because you've been busy. But it's important, we've discovered that actually you really need to think about what change in machinery or what change in behavior are we actually trying to bring about. Stick with that. Everybody around the group, of course, has to be willing to share their knowledge and experience. Sometimes, of course, there may well be conflicts about territory or conflicts about areas of interest, in which case we just need to warn everybody to leave their weapons at the door. We're here to work together. And as I mentioned earlier, if a number of organisations are involved in the authorship of an outcome, the identification of a principle, or the authorship of some guidance documents, then actually we find that gets far better buy-in, far more rapid take-up from all of the organisations within those trade federations or associations. So we're setting up a couple of working groups right now. One of them is about zero carbon, and the second is about digitalisation in all its form. Right now, I think I might be a bit ambitious calling them working groups. They're going to be much more like discussion groups. But please, if you're interested in that work, keep an eye on our website and our Twitter feed and our LinkedIn pages or press statements as well. I'm very happy to extend an invitation to anybody who's got valuable material to bring either to the zero carbon program or to the digitalization program. So that's all I wanted to say for today. Please check out our website, www.cpa.uk.net. Be very happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Kevin, thank you very much. You've just described the daily challenge that many of us face, the importance of outcome and not just activity. There are many days when you wonder which side of the balance we ended up on. Anyway, thank you for your observations. Some very, very big themes in there that we'll unpack in a moment or two. But let me go directly to the questions that we've had from our audience. This one from James. What are your views on HVO fuel not being given a tax advantage?
Thanks, Declan, for repeating the question there. Can I first of all check that my sound is coming through okay? Give me a
I can hear you loud and clear. I don't know about anyone else, but I can hear you.
Okay, very good, very good. So there are two parts to answer that question. Thinking about HVO, hydrogenated vegetable oil or hydro-treated vegetable oil, from our perspective at CPA, the jury is out at the moment on whether HVO is a good thing or perhaps not such a good thing. We know that HVO may well be brought forward as being a solution to emissions which are harmful to public health, particulates and other pollutants. But we've seen very clear and good evidence from good reliable sources which show that on modern machines, perhaps stage 4, stage 5 machines, HVO doesn't actually bring about those health benefits at all. It can bring about a benefit on older machines. So already we're starting to see that HVO is not a universal answer there. The other issue about HVO, of course, is about reduction of carbon footprint. And again, it may well reduce carbon footprint on site. But if you look back at the entirety of the supply chain, it may well not be the case that overall that carbon footprint is being reduced. So when organizations start to move from simply looking at their scope 1 emissions, which is what they produce directly themselves, through their scope 2 and scope 3 emissions, all of which is being increasingly required by on an enlarged number of employers by government regulations, then they find that HVO again doesn't answer all of their carbon reduction questions. And of course, there may well be other governance and sustainability issues around the supply chain providing HVO. So the jury for us is out still as to whether HVO is a good thing or not. We then have to look at the other aspect of it, which is the tax rebate and what government's thinking about that is right now. The best insight that we can see is what government have said in a consultation document about the move away from diesel engined heavy goods vehicles to electric and hydrogen combustion and other novel forms of power for diesel heavy goods vehicles. And there we see that HVO is seen by government as being probably an interim solution, which will very definitely have a finite life and a very rapidly disappearing usage in terms of HGVs. And that really gives us a further reinforcement of what government's view and what Treasury's view is about diesel as a whole. One of the big reasons behind the move from red diesel to white diesel is that government saw that why should the construction industry or other users who are using red diesel actually burn this fossil fuel with health problems and carbon problems that it generates and get a subsidy for it. So if we're really setting ourselves out to be a carbon neutral, zero carbon industry, and that's what our ambitions are in the longer term, then it's a difficult argument to make to say that we should continue to have a subsidy on something which is ultimately seen as being neither good for global warming nor good for public health.
Okay,
so
thank you. I'm sorry to cut in, Kevin. We only have a minute or so left for our discussion. I just want to tie together the two other questions that are in this box. We've talked across the morning about using new technology to become more efficient, to meet climate objectives, to become a more digital operation. Lots of small businesses are telling us, we haven't got the money. What happens?
Well, it's like any new technology. It's going to take a long time for this to be adopted. The drive needs to come from the top downwards, but it needs to be done in a collaborative way, as we've spoken about earlier on. If clients fully understand what the benefits the new technology might bring and take a time scale on that of maybe 2 years, something like that, then organizations can build that into their tendering program, they can build the additional costs into their tendering program, and then they'll much more likely be able to compete on a more level playing field with the early adopters. So it really is a case of holding back the evangelists until the sinners have had time to catch up with what's required of them. And that means a programmed timescale. Nobody likes uncertainty, but if you know what's coming, you can pitch your business to suit it.
And in the long run, you have to adapt. There's no way around it.
Indeed, in the long run, yeah, the construction industry and the rest of the UK economy, the world economy, is going to have to adapt. But that adaptation is much better done if it's done in a programmed, shared way. Otherwise, we just get kickback, we get reactions. We've all experienced a whole range of disruptions in the supply chain, which we'd never imagined over the last couple of years. And our mantra at CPA is that by working together, we can actually smooth out those disruptions in the supply chain, get everybody working together in the same direction in a coordinated way.
Kevin, thank you very much. That's Kevin Minton. He's the Chief Executive of the Construction Plant Hire Association. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone who is watching, brings us to the conclusion of our time together today. I want to thank you for tuning in, for your attention, for your many questions and your input into our conversations. We really do appreciate it. We remain thankful to our sponsors for their support and insight. As I said earlier, without them, the event today would not have happened. There will be a link to a feedback survey in the chat box. We would appreciate you spending some time filling that in so that we can improve the next conversation that we have together. We're all about the continuous improvement. I'm Declan Curry. Thank you so much for your company today. Don't forget to continue the conversation on social media. The hashtag is Efficient Future 2021. And you can follow us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Planet UK. On LinkedIn, you'll find us at Plant Planet. Thank you and goodbye.